Hi, Tim. Thanks for your time today. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, John. So I am Tim Tolino. I am the Global Director of Benefits, Mobility, and Wellness at Hunter Douglas. We are a global manufacturing company, have roughly 21,000 employees in 48 countries around the world. So my responsibility is to them. My primary focus is health and well-being. And then I do have, secondary responsibilities for immigration and mobility, but that's kind of taken a little bit of a backseat. Obviously, there's been a lot of policy change there, and we have some really good partners in the space for us as a company. So let the subject matter experts do their thing there. My background is really within health and wellness and retirement, and prior to moving into Hunter Douglas, which was actually a year ago last week. So we just hit the 1 year mark here. But prior to that, I had a consulting role. I did business to business benefits consulting, primarily in the US. Started at Gallagher, moved over to NFP, and then I did global M&A healthcare, or excuse me, human capital due diligence on behalf of private equity firms at Aon for just under 3 years prior to moving over to Hunter Douglas.
So you've been in this game for a while, but in a couple different environments.
I have, yeah, I have. I like it. I enjoy it a lot. I get to help people. I get to educate people. I'm school to be a teacher. I did student teaching and was like, this is not for me. And I couldn't see myself doing that for 40 years. So I kind of shifted into something that is obviously a bit complicated, but again, I really kind of broke it down to figure out what I'm passionate about, and that's helping others and teaching others, and I get to do that every day.
Yeah, that's great. And to be so close to the impact and empowering others, to take the reins on their own health and give them access to what's needed. I'm curious, in your experience, how have like the expectations in the workplace changed? What do employees need from their employers to be fully engaged, to be well, to have work-life balance?
Yeah, they need a lot, and you mentioned access to care and access to resources and tools is really what I see to be one of my primary responsibilities. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm not going to try to be ever, right? But I do want to do my best to meet people where they're at and provide them with all the tools that they can make the decisions that they need, not only for them but also their families as well. I do look at it as a responsibility to not only our employees but also family members, right? uh, any problems from a health and welfare and a health and wellness standpoint don't stop at the employee. It provides stress at home, whether that's money, whether that's a new diagnosis that's going to affect someone for a long time, or maybe someone's child getting sick. All that affects an employee showing up and being present, right? And there's a really difficult balance to have between having someone be productive at work and then also manage things outside. And work life balance is certainly a a tough issue these days is what I'll say, especially with a lot of return to work things as well. But yeah, so I like that. I'm passionate about that, and I think that that is a primary responsibility of mine. As well as, and the other thing you brought up is how are employees turning to their employer. I actually think that this is something that we're going through a pretty monumental shift right now with
Yeah.
the job market. And the way that I look at it, and this is my personal view as I take a look back at benefits and really the direction of where things are going. I do view or I do think that employees are going to be looking to employers more for support in non-cash compensation or non-cash benefits, right? So they're going to be turning to employers more for support in financial education, right? We're seeing the explosion of that and a lot of point solutions from benefits. And I think that because of just
Point
the general,
solutions from
like a
benefit.
point solution. So like a financial education tool, right? You're
Okay.
seeing some tools on like the employee chassis where an employee is able to get their paycheck sooner than their pay date, right? Those types of tools, or just general financial education tools. We're seeing a lot of that get bundled onto retirement programs, or really an employer engaging a retirement advisor that has, someone that the employees can actually call and get consultative advice on, how they can best plan for their future. So I think employees are going to be turning to employers more as the financial markets continue to tighten and have a difficult outlook, which is kind of the environment that we're in today. And we have been for probably the past, 18 months or so.
So, as the economy shifts and like you mentioned, return to work, um, I've also noticed like teams are shrinking. there's big bets being made on AI, but in this middle ground, people are oftentimes having to do more work with less. Now, I know that well-being is important to and tied to a lot of the benefits that you offer. How do you know that like you're getting it right with the benefits that you offer, specifically in the like mental well-being, mental wellness area?
It's engagement numbers for me.
Okay.
So yeah, ROI is difficult in benefits, and it's a term I typically stay away from because it takes away from the human interaction and human element, right? Which is what matters to me. That is that's the end of it, right? So I mean, you brought up AI, like if you went to someone right now and asked them if they'd be comfortable seeing like AI as an entry point for a doctor, I think the majority of people would say no. You know, they still want the human element of things, right? So we have seen some really great tools and supplements to the existing tools by harnessing and really leveraging the power of some really great AI tools, models, so on and so forth. But yeah, we haven't reached peak efficiency within the benefit space there, and I'm not sure that we're going to ever fully get there because I think people are still going to want the human interaction, the human element to feel comfortable.
Yeah, for now, that certainly makes a difference, but it is pretty scary how quickly AI
It's
seems
catching
to be.
up. It's catching up
Yeah.
very, very quick. Yeah, and there's some really great tools, but then the other side of it is how do you do that ethically and responsibly, right? While your business is there to make money, and no one's cracked that code yet, right? So I think those two things sometimes conflict in the business world, and you have to do it right. You have to do it responsibly and be incredibly transparent about how you're approaching it and how you're leveraging those tools and what you're doing with the data. Because I think that's what everyone's scared about. I don't think that people fully comprehend. If I think about it from a marketing point of view, all the data that's harvested from like someone just scrolling on Instagram or something, right? Like, do you think about that and people tell you what information they have about you as a consumer? And then the first thing you think about is, do I want my health data like that? The answer is like, absolutely not. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's a terrifying prospect right now, but that's the direction that things are going to go because the industry also needs to evolve. We need to catch up. There's a lot of archaic aspects of just the health insurance industry in America to begin with, how you keep records, how the insurance companies talk to doctors, and so on and so forth. So there has to be an evolution. And I think we're hitting a breaking point, and AI is certainly going to be a catalyst of that. I just don't know what the solution is. And if I did, then, start a business already.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are there any new in high impact or perceived high impact for any offerings that are like within the last couple years from a well-being perspective that you've gotten traction with or you feel employees are asking for, employers are offering?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the employee population. One of the things that's really important to me, and I kind of talked about it at the onset of our discussion here, is providing access to people and meeting people where they're at. One of the best ways to do that is to provide the right tools that have really good outcomes that meet people where they're at, whether that is on the phone, whether that's at their home, or maybe with a loved one, right? So one of the programs that we recently rolled out here at Hunter Douglas is a partnership with Color Cancer, which is a preventative screening group. And obviously cancer is probably one of the highest trend drivers just in general, not only within the United States, but also just all employee sponsored benefits. And we're also seeing a really dramatic shift in where younger people are getting diagnosed with cancer earlier and earlier, right? That creates, it's good, right? We're catching things earlier, but
Mhm.
we're running into some issues, right? The cancer care infrastructure is designed for people over 60 just in general, right? All the treatments they're for older people. That's how it's designed, right? Even when I was growing up, I'm 33, right? When I think about people getting diagnosed with cancer and I hear that and I think back in like high school, I go, wow, all right, that person's, in their late 60s or early 70s. And now it's like could potentially be my peer group, right? And we're seeing that happen younger and younger. And so we have a difficult infrastructure of care for cancer care in particular. And I'm just talking about this because this is a solution that I'm very passionate about and very happy we got rolled out. But then the other side of it is okay, great. how are you going to support your employee through survivorship and still provide them meaning, right? Because they ideally, you know, go through care, they go through some sort of diagnosis, they get the right care the first time, but that is going to then create a lot of lifestyle changes that they're going to have to make. Are they getting the right nutritional support? Are they getting the right maintenance drugs? Are they, taking care of themselves? Are they taking care of their mental health, not only for them, but also their caregivers at home? And we found one solution that does all of those things and wraps it up in a nice bow. And Color Cancer was a great partner there. So they work with our employees. They'll send out a testing kit. The employee can take care of it right at their own home. They just mail it back in and then have a consultative call with a physician on the Color Cancer staff. And in the event of diagnosis, they'll work with them to find the right care the first time. They not only provide support to the individual employee, but also any family members and caregiver support as well. And then the care doesn't stop after remission and into survivorship. They support them throughout survivorship, right? And that's the next step, which is, all right, great. You've gone through this really traumatic event. You've come out on the other side. How do you repurpose your life and still find purpose in your work and be a productive employee? Are we providing the right resources for you to come back and still find meaning in your work? Like
Yeah.
you've just gone through such a monumental lifestyle change. And am I just throwing you right back in this thing, or am I supporting you in becoming a productive employee? And it's sometimes, you have to kind of reinvent yourself after this. I fortunately have not been affected by this, but I hear stories from employees, not only at our company, but others as well, that, they struggle to go back and find purpose in their work and their meaning. And I view it as my responsibility to provide a resource that is going to help them do that to the best of their ability.
Yeah, that is wild. And imagine that there could be some blanket approaches that could get close, but everyone's experience based on whether they've been through something that life-changing before or something similar, like
Yeah.
it could be completely a shift in what your
It
values are, what's
is. It
important
is.
in life.
Yeah. And then, you go through the treatment, right? And then it's not just, all right, great, I beat it. Like, yes, that's incredible. But then you have the lifestyle changes that have to come after it, dietary restrictions or dietary changes, the drug
Mhm.
regimens for you to be on to be healthy for the rest of your life. And with, again, the diagnosis happening younger and younger, that means that our responsibility to support those employees is getting longer and longer. And how do we do that in a holistic way? And I love the solution that we rolled out, but I mean, that's like cancer care in a bubble, right? That type of chronic illness diagnosis happens in diabetes, hypertension, so many other
Yeah.
things, right? And yeah, so it's for me, I want it to be a holistic experience for the employee and a holistic supportive experience for not only the employee but their family members as well.
What I love about that is that it doesn't downplay the impact on mental well-being. So after the
Yeah.
physical, you know, cancer is treated, the acknowledgement that there's still other things that aren't as clear to see.
Yep.
And I like that you mentioned it's more than just cancer. And I'd ask what's the access for folks who haven't gone through something that is as concretely diagnosable and accepted of, oh, that's tough, that's a tough one to get through, we want to support you. But what about all those other type of things that are harder to see but may have, real impact on someone's ability to stay engaged at work? How do you support folks like that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, we talked about mental health. Mental health is and access to mental health care in America is difficult, right? That's not a Hunter Douglas unique problem. That's not a Tim who lives in New York problem. That is a United States problem, and access to affordable care is an issue there. So for me, just again, providing and promoting the resources and letting people know that they are there and someone is there for you to get support and help them is really important to me. So, I have an individual on my team. Her job is just wellness, right? So we
Mhm.
have a wellness fair. We have all of our vendors come on site. It's very visible. People come through, and we just actually hosted one at one of our plant locations last month. So it was very, very successful, which is great. But promoting those types of things and having people understand that there is a support system there is really important. especially it's become more prevalent with, again, I mentioned I'm 33. It's become prevalent for people my age and younger, but what about people who are my age and older, right? Who come from a different generation where, it's like you suffer in silence, right? Like that's not how we need to be approaching things anymore. There's a lot of access to care, and I don't think that people understand how many resources are out there, or a lot of the resources that employers do provide, which is a communication and education issue. And, that's certainly one of my responsibilities as well. So promoting those types of things, letting people know that they're there is really helpful. And then, the affordability piece is also, partnering with the right individual and the right vendors.
Do you find that people have stigmas or a lack of understanding of how mental health support could benefit them in their everyday life and work?
I think in general, yes. I think there's certainly a stigma, and I think social media has definitely been both good and bad for
Okay.
the stigma, right? It's if you identified, okay, great, there are other people out there who are like me, but then you have like the individual diagnosis type of thing where it's just like, oh, I see someone, I must have this without talking to a professional.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like
okay.
like those types of things definitely happen, and it's good that we're talking about this, right? But again, that goes back to access to care. Like, have you actually talked to someone about getting help? Have you actually, got a diagnosis from a physician, right? Not someone on Instagram or TikTok or something. So yeah, I think that there is a stigma.
Right.
I think it's going away, but I think that is a lot of education that has to happen surrounding mental health and access to, affordable care in America. And I don't think that the infrastructure is there yet.
Let's hope that it comes. Yeah.
I hope that it does. We certainly need more practitioners in space, and I think that we just need more practitioners in America to begin with. I think that it's going to be an interesting next 5 to 10 years about different types of doctors that are going out. I think like the stat right now is like between 80 to 90% of doctors are going to school to be some sort of specialist, right? So we're going to have a lack of general practitioners and primary care physicians. And I think that that is going to create a lot of issues, right? Because everyone's going to end up going to see a specialist who's going to then refer them to a specialist, right? There's going to be no barrier of entry and no, long-term relationship that someone's going to create with the doctor. I think that that's something that is still needed, right? Having consistent relationships, seeing someone who really knows you and understands you, you've created a relationship with, they see you and they can go, hey, I've been seeing you for the last 5 years. There's something a little bit off here. Let's dig into that and let's talk about it, right? And it comes from a place of care, and that person can help triage to the right next level of specialist in the event that you need it.
Right. So, you mentioned one of the kind of challenges that folks are facing is return to work. And return to work after we all went through COVID,
Yeah.
and that changed us in ways I think we're still realizing. What are some of the interpersonal kind of workplace things that are happening as we bring folks together that are bubbling up to your awareness that might be a need to address from a benefit
Yeah.
or
From a benefits world, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how much. I think that a lot of it is helping people get, good balance and structure, right? And one of the things that we talked about was, work-life balance, right? Like it's different, I think, for us because we have uh a huge population that is like on the floor of manufacturing things, right? Like that didn't go away. Like you've always been going into work, right?
right, right,
And
right.
so I think that we have a unique viewpoint that didn't really affect a whole lot of things, right? From that population standpoint.
Mhm.
Our office group. I think the collaboration is certainly welcome. I think it's good to like sit in a room with people. But then you have are you waking up at 6 a.m. and then just starting work? And are you working on your commute all the way to work? Like when are you shutting off? When are you
Mhm.
taking time to recharge? Right. And I think that that is something that it hasn't necessarily bubbled up, but we have been running some support. Some like last Wednesday, we ran a support webinar. We had like 300 people join about managing burnout and balancing the stresses of work, right? So we do have a lot of educational tools surrounding that, and again, for me, it's letting people know that these tools exist, but also supporting employees and saying, we want you to create this balance because we care about your well-being, right? And if you're not out front of those things, I think that people inherently go, my employer doesn't care, because that's, if you feel stressed, right, you go, what's stressing me out? You're just like, well, I'm working 12 or 14 hours a day. It's like, all right, I'm gonna point my finger at that, and like that's gonna be the issue, right? And
Right.
that's just as much as having conversation with your team, your boss about workload, so on and so forth. And this could be any job anywhere,
Hmm.
but it's also letting the employees know that, like, hey, there's a resource here and I want you to create these boundaries. And I'm a manager, like I'm a people manager, right? And I view it as my responsibility to say, hey, let me know if your workload is overbearing, right? Or if it's overwhelming. And if it is, then let's figure out how we can set boundaries for you to be successful, still find meaning in your work, and then also hit all of our goals that we're trying to hit.
Yeah, that is a tough one, right? So it's like you can have the
It,
best intentions, the
double
company,
double double edged sword, double edged
right?
sword, right?
But then it's like then it requires that middle level management or that whole management team to
Yeah,
be well versed in that, assumingly
yeah,
handling that stuff successfully themselves.
and I
Maybe
think that there's a big gap in education on how to support middle management in managing those types of things, right? And I think that
is
that
right.
is a really big key to success. And yeah, I mean, when I think about it in my own bubble as
Yeah.
Tim Tolino, the manager, right? I know that I still have a lot of growth in a lot of areas, right? I'm a child in comparison, right? I'm 33, so yeah, I'm like still getting started in my career in a lot of ways, but yeah, like there's always something that I feel like I can do better about, and I can hold myself much better to those standards as well. I know how much of that I work, and I may not set the best example by leading in some ways that I keep hours, but it's a growing pain.
Well, yeah, I mean, if someone who knows intimately everything that's out there as a resource and is, in their manager role, still trying to figure it out
Don't
to,
use the tools. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm just like like I just need to be cognizant of this and work through it myself. So yeah, I'm guilty as well.
okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
then what becomes the tipping point? Just like either stress, pressure would then tip you into I've got to do this because it's like, one step away from a crisis, or is
I mean,
it
I have like my personal tells, right? It's like,
okay?
yeah, if I know that I'm feeling it, if I go through the day and just skip lunch and just like forget to eat, I'm just like, you got a little too much on your plate, man. Right. And like that's probably like my biggest thing. I'm just like, all right, you shouldn't be working through lunch. Like, let's take a look at this tomorrow. Let's plan out my day. I'll put the lunch actually in my calendar and I'll take a step away from my desk. Right. So I have my own personal things that I do. I mean, stress is a part of life, right? And I don't view stress as an inherently like immediate negative emotion.
Right.
Ongoing consistent stress is a problem, right? But if something comes up and I go, wow, I'm stressed about that, I take a step back and go, all right, why? Like, why am I having this emotional reaction to this? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and being able to take a step back and process that is good, right? And
Well, you gotta
that's
you gotta have the skills to process that because so
well,
often, especially
that's yeah,
especially with men, I find that we've so long kind of been rewarded for like not showing emotion and
yeah,
right. And even
yep.
as leaders, like we say, like, okay, like professionalism requires this kind of stoic
Yeah,
front.
that's not me. That's
Yeah.
very much
Okay.
not me.
Okay, all right, yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I
I'm
see a lot of I see a lot of suppression masquerading as strength in how that then kind of just builds some tension and challenges.
yeah, for sure. And I would say also, I mean, it's definitely more prevalent in men for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, I talk and express frustrations and everything,
you
right?
seem like
Like
a natural talking and expressing.
yeah.
I
Well,
love
yeah.
that.
I mean, like I said, I like the sound of my own voice, so it doesn't hurt. But no, I think it's important to talk about those things because it's a very human interaction, right?
Absolutely.
And particularly with my job, like people need to know that there's a human on the other side, right? And that is able to understand, that does feel like all these things, and it's a comfort thing, right? So if someone comes up and says, "Hey, I don't really know where to go with this, but I really need help," it's like, awesome, great, that's great, but I need to create an inviting presence for those people, right? And sometimes I am better at that than I am on some days, and some days it's a bit tough, and like I'm a bit seem a bit stressed, or man on a mission type of thing, and I might not be as invited, and I take a look at
Yeah.
that on the day after. But again, like those types of ups and downs, or good days, bad days, like everyone has those. Like there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just being able to regulate those types of things, and obviously like no blow ups or anything. So yeah.
So if you were to like kind of encapsulate some like manager and leader type skills to
Mhm.
create that welcoming environment so that, an employee who's struggling can have that conversation. What are those skills, or what's a method that you would say other leaders should try to, and acknowledging that you have your own struggles with that. But
Yeah, yeah.
and we all do.
Leadership education from Tim. Perfect. Here we go. No, I'm kidding. I think that openness and transparency about things that I'm struggling with, right, is really important. And I take the lead on saying like, hey, this is what's going on to like my team. I say, hey, this is what's going on. Here's the backdrop. These are the things that I'm struggling with. And then, also I have people of varying career levels on my team, right? Like I've been in the working industry for, 10, 11 years, right? I have someone on my team who's been at my company for 38, right? When I think about being able to talk to someone who's been in the working world that long, regardless of what level that individual is, there's a lot of value in that, right? And I do find a lot of value in that. So a lot of it is me being open and transparent of the things that I'm struggling with, but also I want their opinions just as much as, I want to lead, right? Because they give me a perspective that I can't give myself. And there's something for me to learn there. But
Ah,
also, it's really, really helpful to, again, that if I'm doing that as a manager, people know that it's a two-way street, right? And people get more comfortable bringing up things that they're struggling with. And I go, okay, great. And then it's my job as a manager to assess, is this because of workload? Is this because of stress? Do I need to restructure things? Do I need to help them set better boundaries? Do I need to, focus on a certain, you know, workplace education type of thing, whether it's,
mm,
how to better manage your day, better manage your time, how to prioritize certain things, right? It could be 100 different things, but if my employees and my team don't feel like they have a two-way street, then none of that matters because they're not going to talk about it. And then I just end up with a disassociated employee who ends up leaving the organization.
right. Which is, we haven't said it explicitly, but that's a very costly outcome that no one
Yeah.
wants for both, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, sorry to put you on the spot for your leadership education
Oh, it's
kind
all
of
good.
spot, but it's something that's near and dear to my heart. But I think if people led with that level of openness and vulnerability, and then willingness to kind of realize they've got something to learn from every situation, I think everyone would be in a much better place.
Yeah, and it's unique because I'm in HR, right? That entire thing is dealing with people all
Yeah.
day, right? Good days and bad days, right? And so I think that I learned that pretty quickly when I was starting my career. It's just like sometimes you just got to listen. And I would say that's the other thing, just let people talk, let people listen. You don't need to have a response to everything, right? As much as I've, led this conversation, which is, all well and good, like sometimes you just ask a question open ended and just be quiet and listen. There's a lot to learn from people.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and it's definitely the focus on you for this call. I really wanted to tap
Yeah.
into your wisdom, so no worries there. Uh, we've run out of time. I really enjoyed talking to you and getting this perspective. This benefits world is such an interesting space, but knowing that there's folks like you who are focused on access and really getting to the positive impacts that these benefits can preserve, it's been a real delight talking to you today.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, John. I enjoyed it as well.
All right, thank you.